what's going on, everybody? My name, of course, is Chad, and this week we're back with probably the most excited I've been for a review in a long time. Thanks to a friend and a moderator from the Discord, Henry. Thank you so much, Henry. He sent me, frankly, a series that I would never be able to afford to review. He sent me the entire series for Classical Japanese, a grammar, which is 2 books and a workbook. This video will be looking at basically the main book in the series. So if you like these reviews for things that aren't as mainline, you know, a lot of Genkis and a lot of Minas and a lot of beginner textbooks and dictionaries, this is a bit more advanced. So if you guys enjoy the advanced content, please, please, please leave a like down below. It tells me that you're actually wanting to see more of this, and to be frank, I would love to give you guys more of this kind of content. This is actually a textbook that I'm using right now, and it's very rare that I get to have a formal textbook written for something at my level, which is really fun. Most of the time, you get to a point where you're just using native materials, so going back and finding a organized resource to learn a topic, I think is really cool. And if any of you guys, frankly, are familiar at all with classical Japanese, it spans a huge amount of time, and there are lots of different specific grammar points and usages as the language developed. So to just say classical Japanese is a little bit of a misnomer. This is specifically mid-Heian Japanese, which, to be honest, other than the period, I didn't know that there was a difference in literary style between that. It started in the early 600s and 700s, transitioned all the way out essentially around World War II. So this covers probably the majority of what you and I would read in classical Japanese, which is why I've been really excited to work through this, to be reviewing it today, and to use it once this review's over. So stay tuned, stay excited, and let me tell you why I'm really excited about this book. Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Chad. Welcome back to the hands-on review table, and you might notice something different already. I didn't start this video by hucking these across the room. And that is because, if you can't tell, oh my gosh, they are so nice. The Classical Japanese series, the books themselves come in these really beautiful bound editions that are expensive, and I don't want to destroy them because I'm actually using them myself, and I like them very much. This week, of course, we're going to focus on Japanese grammar, but they also have Classical Japanese Reader and Essential Dictionary, as well as an exercise and answers with tables booklet that is a lot less nice. But I will be reviewing these on a separate video. For this week, we're going to be focusing on this nearly 500 page tome, and before we get started, I do want to recommend one thing, and I always do this. Please, 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 if you see this book, if you like this book, if this is something you are like, man, I need this, go online, pay to support it legally, go actually purchase this book. I will only be showing you the sections that I feel are necessary to give you a good review. The first couple things I'd like to actually share with you guys, and they're a pretty big deal, at least for me. I'm sure you can see down here, this is Columbia University. So this is a very prestigious school. They have a great Japanese program, and on top of that, it was in conjunction, if you can read down here, with Japan Foundation Japanese Language Institute. Anyone that knows the Japan Foundation knows that they put out a lot of really quality stuff. So this book is coming from 2 very good sources. And frankly, I'm excited. I've been using it, and I want to show you guys why I think that's the case. So I'm going to start off with just how thick and how dense this book is. You guys are going to be able to see it based on how wide this is. This is thicker than Genki. This is thicker than Mina. This is thicker than pretty much any intermediate book I have, than Tobira. This is a really heavy, it's heavy. It's a heavy book. On top of that, just look at how much it actually goes over in this classical Japanese. And by the way, this is not everything that has to do with classical Japanese. This actually does have bookends on what it covers. But just look at this. This is insane. It's so much that I think it would really surprise every single person to be like, wow, there's 500 pages, and it's actually really densely packed 500 pages. The next thing I'd like to talk about actually starts at the preface, and I was kind of surprised by this. They actually say that the book is intended for intermediate students of modern Japanese. So not even intermediate students of classical, intermediate of modern. Now I know intermediate means different things to different people, but speaking from my experience, what I considered to be intermediate, what I felt like when I was intermediate, I could not have used this book very well. This almost expects you to know quite a bit of grammar in Japanese to be able to use it. And if you're already someone who's struggling maybe with particles, or you're not exactly super great at reading Japanese as it is, which is fine, everyone is there at some point, This thing's like, oh yeah, maybe you can get into it. I would argue you probably need to be a bit more advanced. But hey, maybe there's an intermediate student out there that thinks differently, and if so, good for you. Just to show you guys, this book is considered, it has 4 parts. It starts with inflected forms, which is actually where I'm at right now. I'm in the 40s, so I'm down here somewhere. Then you have non-inflected forms, which I suppose are supposed to be easier, at least according to the book. I haven't gotten that far, but I have looked over them. It does seem a little bit easier. Then in part 3, we go back to honorifics. Part 4 has kind of appendices, I think is the plural of that word. Basically just charts and flows and things to help you remember. But the other fun part here is that in part 5, they do have grammar exercises inside of this book, and I'll show you just 1 or 2 pages of that. So you can come in here and see that this book itself does have some work for you to do inside this book. So you don't inherently need any of the other things, although this is the answers to all these, so you might actually want the answer key. So this does almost act like a textbook. It is a grammar resource, so it is teaching you the grammar, and it's not inherently teaching you words or anything, although you could, sentence mine some words from it. But it's almost a textbook, and that's why I say if someone's going to start this, I would not use this more or less as your way to learn vocabulary or anything outside of just trying to apply what you already know towards classical Japanese terms. Now, in every single chapter, you're going to encounter essentially this same setup. You have, here's what the chapter's about, some small explanations, actually using the native Japanese words for these instances. After they're done teaching you, you might have a historical note, you might have some things for you to kind of think about and ponder on yourself. As you can see, everything that they pull from here, and I'll explain this later, comes from real Japanese resources. I'll explain that here in a second. So these aren't sentences that they came up with. All of these come from actual ancient Japanese sources, essentially. They're not all ancient, but a lot of them actually are. But this is one of the things I wanted to show you. So this book says, it kind of applies for 2 people. You have the intermediate group, and they kind of say, or at least hint, that most of what you see in here is for that. So you're either learning this first as an intermediate, or you're reviewing it as an advanced student who's already kind of going through classical Japanese. But there is an extra section. This is advanced study and reference. So this is extra things, more work, harder sentences, and that follows all the way to either the end of the chapter or just before the end of the chapter. So if you're someone who's maybe been exposed to a little bit of classical Japanese, this should not only reinforce what you know, or maybe explain it a bit better if you're confused. It should actually go quite a bit beyond that. But if you're super new to classical Japanese, they have the first things that you can learn, and then if you want and if you feel comfortable, they have extra stuff going farther in every single section in every single chapter of the book, which I think is a nice touch. Now, I think I said this in the intro, but I'll say it again because it's worth saying. The book kind of centers on Heian Japanese. So that is the literary tradition of that era of Japan. It kind of started and began its way into that form in the 600s and 700s, and it continued to develop. It was not set in stone there. The language is living, and it was moving and changing, and people were using things in different ways, all the way up until basically World War II. Might be World War I, but I think it's World War II. So that is a huge amount of literature that is kind of contained in here, and so what this book is stating is this kind of mid-Heian era. This is the standard, this is the textbook, this is the Tokyo Ben of what we're studying, and then it's going to also show you examples from the fringe of those time areas so you can see how it developed. That's also down here with these historical notes, as well as to where it kind of ended and moved into more modern Japanese. So that's a lot, and you don't need to know all that to read this kind of classical Japanese, but you do need to understand that the earlier back you get, the less looking like this it looks. And the further away you get from this, also the less like this it used to look, because it developed into what is now modern Japanese. So just understand that this is really trying to confine you to certain periods and only give you cursory glances at the outside. Now, I just mentioned this. You can see here on page 7. These are actually the books that they take from. So everything in this book comes from these sources. These are real native Japanese sources, and you can see it's, the 11s, the 12s, 10th century, 700s. I actually have a Kojiki downstairs, interesting. Late 10th century, 1200s, 1600s, that must be one of the later ones. I haven't encountered that one yet. So yeah, you guys can see that this is basically taking native sources from all of these periods throughout Japanese history, and they're showing you how to use this classical Japanese with real, actual sources. It's kind of like that Japanese the manga way that I showed you. Those are real manga panels, and they're teaching you basic grammatical structures with those. Same sort of structure, but for classical Japanese, which is why this is so cool and why I like this so much. Out of everything that I have to basically talk to you guys about is that it has some weird use, but not weird. It just is different than what you would probably expect for furigana. So when you look at how everything in here is written, I hope you guys can see this. This wo, right? We say like something something wo o niku o taberu. But this is otoko, a man, or onna, a woman. There are historic ways of writing these that aren't using the modern hiragana to be able to say it. So this book actually uses for furigana the historic kana. So I'm sure you guys can come over here and look and see, wait, that's te udo. But you come over here and it's chodo, meaning furniture. So that is actually how you're supposed to read these historical kana. So these furigana are going to be a little weird if you guys aren't used to it, if you're studying modern. Like this is a good example. So a lot of people know issho, like one lifetime. But look at that kana above it. It's completely different. Or you have here, iu, to speak. But that's ihu, hu, in modern Japanese. So it's not a huge difference, but it's something you need to be aware of when you buy this. Do not just read the tops of these and enter it into your your Anki or your Memrise or whatever system you're using, and expect that to be how it's read in modern Japanese. Now, I really wish I was able to say, oh, I've studied this whole book, and I'm able to tell you that this thing is X, Y, or Z. The truth is, I'm on page like 42, and I can tell you just from those first 42 pages, this is dense with information. This is like, to think of what I've learned in 42 pages, and to multiply that over to 500 pages, which is what this book is. I mean, you guys can just see, this is just such a crazy book in how dense it is. I'm really excited to keep using this. And yes, I am using this. This is a personal book that I will be studying myself, and I cannot recommend this enough to people that want to actually learn classical Japanese. I've always picked up bits and pieces of classical Japanese, just either studying in Japan, guiding, or working over there. You know, you come across a rock that's carved and it has some sort of weird grammatical form or some ancient use of kana, and you just have to look it up and you kind of learn about it that way. But having something that's organized, where all the work is organized there's actual exercises that you can practice with, as well as real verses from things that you probably would want to read, like the Kojiki. It's just, I don't know, I think that this is so cool. And although, yes, for like $55 just for this, not including the other two books, I'm always a budget-minded person. I like budget-friendly books. I can't think of anywhere I would rather spend $55 to learn this than here. This is so worth it for me, and I would 100% pay my own money now knowing what I know about this book. But that's just me. You guys might have a different opinion of classical Japanese. If you do, why don't you meet me in the outro and I'll tell you exactly what to do with it. And there we are. That, my friends, is classical Japanese, a grammar. Did you guys like it? Is this something that you're thinking you're going to buy now? Maybe buy it for the future? Do you ever think you're going to use it or need it? Do you think that this is more of a pontificating waste? Whatever your opinion is, I actually want to hear it. Leave a comment down below. Tell me everything that you thought about this book. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or compliments, feel free to leave them in the comment box down below. I personally read all of them. You can catch me at That's My Chad on Twitter, Chad Zimmerman, basically everywhere else. I have a link to our 400+ member Discord, which is where Henry is, the guy that sent me these books. So you can go on there and thank him for making this all possible. Thank you so much, Henry. I really appreciate it. I have an Amazon wishlist down below if you would like to sponsor a review just like Henry did this week. On top of that, I have my own books on Amazon that you can check out to learn all about culture, Japanese, languages, all sorts of things. Go check out my Amazon page down below. Frankly, check out all the links down below. They're all pretty cool. And that's about it for this week. If you are subscribed, be sure to stay after the outro for the sub-only outro. I have a special announcement just for you. But if you're not subscribed, hey, you don't have to stay after the outro. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this helped you. Love hard, love deep, and I will see you, hopefully, next week. Bye-bye. Alrighty, thank you for staying after the outro. That clearly means you're subscribed, right? Because you should not be watching this unless you are subscribed. So go ahead and hit that button if you're not. But if you are, thank you so much. We just hit 20,000 because of you guys. So the fact that you're staying there and helping me trudge along means the world to me. I have a cool announcement. I'm going out of the country again. Wow, I can't believe it. Twice in 1 year. It's almost like what I was doing before COVID. I can't believe it. Unfortunately, it's not Japan. That'd be pretty sweet. But they're being a little tight anus right now about who they let in. Their country, their rules. So, I'm going to Russia. I got an invite from some people to go over there. I'm going to be studying a lot of stuff while I'm over there, making some travel content over the holiday season, literally like the end of December until the end of January, which if you guys don't know, is the coldest time to go. And I'm also going to St. Petersburg, which I think is like the Arctic Circle nearly. So it's gonna be very cold. But the cool thing is you'll get videos from that. And I promise they won't just be Russian videos, you'll be getting Japan content while I'm there. So I'm just telling you months in advance that if you see in a few months, oh wait, his background is different. It's probably because I'm filming in the former Soviet Union. I'm going over there to meet a lot of the people that helped me make some of the Russian books that we did, just to be a tourist, to travel, to have some fun, as well as to study some stuff for my master's degree. So it's gonna be super fun. I'm really excited to share that with you, and just so you guys know. But on top of that, you're not even gonna miss that much because every year I take basically Christmas until my birthday, January 6th, off every year anyways. That's kind of like my extended vacation every year. So really, you're probably not even going to notice. There might be 2 videos where the background's different, but hey, I still wanted to tell you, wanted to let you know, because I love you. I love you like family. So, das vidanya. I will catch you, my comrades, next week, and in a few months on the other side of the world. Paka paka.